When the final installment aired in 1993, over 30 million people watched it. That's how invested people were in this campaign. Did it work for Nescafé? It sure did. Sales shot up 50%. It really was a masterclass in ongoing commercial storytelling, and very few commercials today ever try it. In 2008, it was voted the most romantic advertising campaign of all time by the UK public. Still loved and remembered after 20 years. And by the way, the handsome man in that campaign was actor Anthony Head, who just played Rebecca's evil ex-husband Rupert Mannion in none other than Ted Lasso. The guy's got range. Well, that's a wrap on our 2024 season. Hope you enjoyed it. But we want to let you know we'll be posting some very interesting bonus podcasts from now until we're back in January. In those podcasts, I'll be doing interviews with some very interesting people, and we'll have a special summer series for my fellow Beatle fans. You won't want to miss that. Before we say goodbye, I want to thank our amazing Under the Influence staff. They work so hard to bring you the show every week. And thank you to CBC for the last 19 years. Next season will be our 20th on CBC, and we have a special season planned, and we'll be doing a live audience recording to celebrate that milestone, so stay tuned. Until then, have a safe and fun summer. I'm Terry O'Reilly. This episode was recorded in the Terrestream Mobile Recording Studio. Producer, Debbie O'Reilly. Chief Sound Engineer, Jeff Devine. Researchers, Patrick James Aslin, Allison Pinches, Abby Forsyth, and Angus Mary. Social media team, Sydney O'Reilly and Callie O'Reilly. Under the Influence theme by Ari Posner and Ian Lefevre. Tunes provided by APM Music. Follow me on social at Terry O Influence. See you soon.
Hi, this is Patrick James Asselin. I'm a researcher on Under the Influence.
Fun fact.
Did you know there are over 350 episodes in our archives to binge on? Happy listening.
This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg.
I'm Kathleen Goldhar from Crime Story. Do you remember when Seth Rogen made a movie about assassinating Kim Jong-un, a movie that the North Korean government called an act of war? This week on Crime Story, we're talking to Jean Lee, an American journalist who's reported extensively from inside North Korea and has made a podcast called The Lazarus Heist, all about North Korea's extreme response to this ridiculous Hollywood movie. To catch that conversation, find and follow Crime Story wherever you get your podcasts.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show. Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC...
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, it's 21 degrees and mostly sunny over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon, I'm Matt Humphrey. We are about to learn more about the province's plan to search a landfill north of Winnipeg for women's remains. In 1 hour, the Canoe government will hold a technical briefing laying out the plan to search Prairie Green. The remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are believed to be there. The women are victims of an admitted serial killer. The government has already told us in coming weeks workers will sift through one area of the landfill to understand the material, its consistency. They'll then search a targeted area where the remains are believed to be located. If that's unsuccessful, the search area will expand. Manitobans are celebrating the decision by the federal government to formally declare Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization. The announcement came yesterday after years of pressure from Iran's diaspora living in Canada. 55 Canadians, including 9 from Winnipeg, were killed when the Revolutionary Guard Corps shot down Flight PS-752. Aryan Aryanpour is the president of the Iranian community of Manitoba.
Of course, a victory for the families of victims of Flight PS-752,
for the victims of 6 years of a brutal crackdown. I believe we have won a battle, but we are planning to win the war.
Now that the Revolutionary Guard is on the terrorist list, police can charge anyone who financially or materially supports the group, and the banks can freeze their assets. Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham says he's willing to sit down with community groups, the province, and other organizations to talk about cuts to community grants. The city plans to cut the grants from $3.4 million down to $1.3 million. Many groups are worried. Gillingham says while community grants have been reduced, overall grants available have gone up.
No organizations have been cut at this time. No specific grants have been cut. We're now going to have an intake process, which we haven't had before, and ask organizations to apply through the intake process so that we can measure and review the grant applications against the strategic plan.
Gillingham says a leader of one of the community groups asked if they could meet with the mayor and others to discuss the support they need. He says he's open to that conversation. The White House says it'll reprioritize the deliveries of Patriot air defense missile systems and other missiles. Hundreds of them will be sent to Ukraine in the coming weeks. But U.S. administration officials say the change in missile deliveries will not affect shipments to Israel. In a recent video, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accused Washington of withholding weapons and ammo to his country. The White House says that's incorrect, perplexing, and disappointing. Evacuees from Churchill Fall, Newfoundland are getting some good news about the fire threatening their town. The wildfire and the town are separated by the Churchill River. And Premier Andrew Furey says fire officials are keeping a very close eye on the direction of the fire.
The biggest driver of whether it'll jump the river or not is the wind patterns. And so right now there's a favorable wind pattern, but we live in Newfoundland and Labrador. Winds change all the time.
Last night, roughly 750 people were told to leave their homes as fierce winds pushed the fire closer. Many had a white-knuckle 3-hour drive through a lightning storm to get to Happy Valley Goose Bay. Others headed to Labrador West.
We were hoping for the best and that we didn't have to leave home, but we managed to do it. And chaotic in the house, trying to pack, not knowing what to pack was hard, knowing that you had to leave stuff behind.
Around 40 people remain in the town to keep the hydroelectric plant operating and to protect the town. There's no strike for now by mechanics at WestJet. The CBC's Anis Hedari has the latest on where the negotiations stand.
WestJet and the union representing its mechanics are going back to the bargaining table. There are about 650 WestJet mechanics across the country represented by the Aircraft Mechanics Fraternal Association. They had given notice to strike by 7 p.m. Calgary time tonight after rejecting a deal from the company almost universally. WestJet tried to stop a strike by asking the Canada Industrial Relations Board to intervene, but the Labour Board said it would need more time to make a decision and didn't grant WestJet's request. The union says it will cancel the strike. Now both sides say they are returning to negotiations. The company says it's committed to finding a resolution. While dozens of flights were canceled yesterday and today, WestJet hasn't announced any new cancellations, and it hasn't confirmed if any canceled flights will be restored. Passengers should check the airline's website for the status of their flight. Anis Hedari, CBC News, Calgary.
And it's the first day of summer, but compared to the rest of Canada, we're just not feeling it. But we will. Dave Phillips, senior climatologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada, says summer's just taking its time to get to Manitoba.
They're saying it's going to be a warmer than normal summer in Manitoba, really across the west. But it's probably not going to come till about the middle of July.
Phillips says this past winter and spring were the third warmest in the 77 years they've been tracking weather statistics in our province. He says all the rain we've had should improve the forest fire situation over the summer. Maybe no fire ban. In Winnipeg, a high of 26, mainly sunny, but a risk of an afternoon thunder shower today in the big city. In the Wheat City, a chance of a thunderstorm, mainly cloudy in Brandon, and a high of 24. Dauphin, a chance of showers, a high of 23. Flin Flon, a mix of sun and cloud, a high of 21. Thompson, a high of 20, with a chance of showers. And in Churchill, a mix of sun and cloud, and a high of 15 degrees. Right now, you are listening to CBC Radio 1.
Good afternoon and welcome to Radio Noon, the summer solstice edition. Yes, later today it will be the longest day of the year, and then, well, never mind what happens after that. Coming up on the show today, summertime, and many Manitobans are heading to the cottage, but here's a little cloud for you. Remember blastomycosis? It's that fungal infection that can sometimes be fatal. Well, our call-in today is going to address that and what to do about it and any other pet questions you have, because we will be talking to Dr. Jonas Watson. And it'd be great to have him because there's lots of pet questions in the summer. And first up, though, a well-known Winnipeg garden center owner says he's concerned about a new traffic interchange being built on St. Mary's Road and the Perimeter Highway intersection. We'll hear why right now. Yes, you are listening to Radio Noon, and it is 7 minutes after 12 o'clock. Well, as I just mentioned, a $135 million interchange being built near the intersection of St. Mary's and the South Perimeter has one garden center owner concerned. Jordan Hebert owns Lacoste Garden Center on South St. Mary's Road, but he's worried about the safety of a planned, uncontrolled intersection to be built at the crossroads of Provincial Road 200 and Seneca Road. Usually, at this time of year, Jordan's busy running the garden center and answering customers' questions, but right now he has some questions of his own. I first asked him about his concerns.
Our concern is around a specific intersection when you're coming into the city from the south. Specifically when you're leaving the garden center. So there's three of us, Lacoste, Ron Paul's, and St. Mary's, three garden centers that have traffic that will have to exit back onto the St. Mary's Highway this way. And currently, you just cross at a controlled intersection at the perimeter, which they needed to change, and they've made those adjustments. But unless you see the design, it's a bit hard to find. You can see it online. You now have to make a left-hand turn crossing the highway when leaving to go back into the city from, say, if you're leaving the garden center, or if you live around here, because there are houses around us as well. So if you live here, you now have to cross the highway with a left-hand turn at an uncontrolled intersection. And my concern is we have pretty heavy traffic seasonally, but year-round, we're open year-round. It really, really gets quite intense in the spring season. It's not, it's not like it might be in, say, October, sometimes May, June especially. It's pretty intense. And the nature of that traffic at certain times of day can be heavy construction vehicles, 1-ton, 3-ton trucks pulling construction trailers, landscaping, companies that are coming and going, plus just a lot of customer traffic that we get. And so that is going to create quite a backlog at an uncontrolled intersection, which I have some concerns about our customers and just their frustrations and how that could affect our business. But more importantly, I'm just really worried about the safety of that because, as my employees, we sell to over 100 employees in the spring season. That's a lot of people that now have to cross an uncontrolled intersection. Our customers have to cross that intersection. It doesn't seem safe. It's a concern.
Well, how busy does it get even now?
Well, right now, even we're at the end of June and we're still, parking lot's pretty full. It's quite intense. Currently, that intersection isn't in use. You're still crossing the old way, like at a controlled intersection over the highway. But this new route, let's just say even with that controlled intersection, it can back up quite a bit, right? Mm-hmm. So with it being a stop sign instead of a stop light, that's going to back up extensively. Is my worry. Yeah. And then people getting frustrated, maybe they're in a bit of a hurry, and so they maybe risk it and turn left, because they're just frustrated, they've been in line, and the traffic coming in. I mean, that's just a recipe for, it's concern, right? Mm-hmm. And especially if some of these people are pulling trailers, if it's, say, a contractor who's trying to get back to the job site, or somebody who is a trucker who's long haul and they're just frustrated. Yeah, that's the concern.
And of course, as you mentioned, you're not the only seasonal business around there.
No, this affects three businesses specifically that are going to be kind of in this area that now you have to get back into the city if you're leaving towards Winnipeg to make this left-hand turn. And all of us are garden centers. All of us are busy, busier in the spring season and Christmas season as well.
And have you made these concerns known?
Yes, and I have to say the province has been pretty good at getting back to us. MTI has been good at listening to our concerns. They understand them. We just simply disagree on the result. So, I mean,
what do you mean, disagree?
Well, I guess they are still saying they're going to watch it I guess you'd have to almost maybe talk to them. They feel it's going to be observed. They're going to make the decision, I think, post-opening to see if it is required. They don't believe it currently is. And I guess that's where we disagree.
Mm-hmm.
So my concern is, what are you going to wait for? Are you going to wait for a problem? Well, then it's too late, So you're going to, why wait for the problem? And this, perhaps you can say it's easy from my perspective, but it does feel like this is so obviously an issue.
Mm-hmm.
A left-hand turn crossing a highway for a very busy businesses such as ourselves, it just does not seem like it's an obvious concern, an obvious problem that we do have. And if they maybe say, okay, well, some months of the year, we might not have that fluctuation. We always have traffic year round, but it's really heavy in the spring and Christmas. Well, maybe in, the fall months or the middle of winter, maybe you have a green light and it's on yield for that left-hand turn for the other people. Just change the lights,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see why that can't be seasonal.
So that's a solution you've suggested?
Yes, yeah, and they've listened. I will say they've listened. They just, disagree.
Yeah. And what are your customers saying about this?
To be honest, customers don't really know a whole lot about it. People haven't really gone on and looked at that design change that is happening south of the perimeter. They might not know about it. They just see the overpass, and they don't really know how it's going to happen to leave our business now. But that's why it's good to bring it up. Yeah. We have a lot of concern with staff here and the businesses that are affected here and people that live in the neighborhood I've talked to, and they've got a concern about that. Customers, I think, just might not be aware.
Well, thank you very much for giving us your point of view, and I'll let you get back to the greenhouse.
Thank you, Laurie. Appreciate you calling.
Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Jordan Hebert is with Lacoste Garden Center on St. Mary's Road. And if you want to see what that interchange looks like, we have a graphic of it on the CBC YouTube channel. And now we've got time for a tune. This is from singer-songwriter Sam Singer's album. What a good name, Sam Singer. He's a singer. Where the Rivers Do. This is So It Is.
A faceless soul from long ago told me I was looking on the years I waited, timeless tongues, and speaking of forbidden love when I was young, but I'm old enough for that longing star to burn brightly on, and so they did, and so it is. So it is, there they are.
That was So It Is by Winnipeg singer-songwriter Sam Singer.
When Kim Boland received a dead rat in the mail, she knew exactly who sent it.
There was also a note that said if I didn't stop ratting, I was going to be killed.
Kim is one of Canada's foremost gang reporters, and that rat, it came while she was in the middle of covering a shocking, salacious murder case known as the Surrey Six. Kim takes us behind the scenes and gives us a rare peek into the life of a gang reporter. That's this week on Crime Story, available wherever you get your podcasts.
You are listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM and 990 AM. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten, filling in for Janet Stewart today. And coming up later in the show, I want you to take down this number, 204-780-0893. 204-780-0893. I want you to call and join our conversation with Dr. Jonas Watson. We're talking about pets and the summer and things like blastomycosis, a long word I've recently learned to pronounce, as well as anything else to do with your pets and the summer. And also, there is a toll-free number, 1-800-268-5483, but do give us a call. A little bit of a look at the forecast, Riley's forecast. Highs of 26 today. That sounds okay. Slight risk of a thunder shower this afternoon. Mainly clear tonight. Friday, 27 degrees. I'll believe that when I see it. And on Saturday, 22 and cloudy. Sunday, 26 and mostly sunny. Looking ahead to Monday, 29 degrees, says Riley, mix of sun and clouds. Tuesday, 22, Wednesday, 21, and Thursday, 23, without much precipitation there, just for a change. Some temperatures for it this hour. Brandon is 19, Churchill is 11, Dauphin 18, Gimli and the Paw 20, Thompson 16, and in Winnipeg at this hour it's 20 degrees with the wind southwest 28, gusting to 40. It is 18 minutes after 12 o'clock on Radio Noon. Well, time travel is real at Dalnevert Museum in downtown Winnipeg. Just walk in the front door to find yourself in the Victorian era. Standing tall and proud at 61 Carleton Street, Dalnevert Museum is celebrating its 50th year since transforming a neglected Victorian pile into a cherished historical landmark. Visitors can immerse themselves in the art, architecture, and daily life of the house on their own or with the help of knowledgeable volunteer guides. As the executive director of Heritage Winnipeg, Cindy Tugwell is familiar with its history as a home and as a museum, and she joins me in the studio. Good afternoon, Cindy.
Good afternoon.
So what's the historical significance of that house on Carleton?
Well, there's a lot of historical significance. It's a 19th century, built 1895. It was built by prominent architect Charles Wheeler, who ironically did the Holy Trinity Anglican Church that we're talking about in the news. And it was a testament to the elite and how the wealthy lived. And it had all the amenities that most were not familiar with, indoor plumbing, upgraded electrical. And Mrs. McDonald even had an intercom upstairs in her washroom to call the help when she needed them.
Very high tech.
Very high tech at the time.
Yeah. Now, Mrs. McDonald was Mrs. McDonald, wife of the son of Sir John A., right?
It was so Hugh John A. MacDonald, of course, Premier of Manitoba and son of John A. MacDonald, Prime Minister of Canada. So when you look at the historical significance, it's architecturally significant, it's socially significant, culturally significant. And really the story of Dalnevert is a testament to a snapshot in time that we don't want people to forget what the 19th century was like, what it was like, that wealthy, how they lived, how wealthy people lived, and a snapshot into the history and our soul of our city. So it's very important.
Well, and what's also notable about it is the MacDonald House was the MacDonald House since the 19th century. But how did it transform itself into Dalnevert?
Well, it's got a sad story, but a happy ending in the late 60s, very indicative of the time in most Canadian cities. Developers were buying rundown. It was a rooming house when Mr. MacDonald died, passed away. Mrs. MacDonald couldn't afford to live there anymore. She moved to Rosalind Courts, and the home was purchased and used as a rooming house for many, many decades. And you can imagine was getting run down. In 69, I believe it was purchased by a developer and was going to demolish it for a parking lot.
Oh.
And citizens rallied, and primarily philanthropist Kathleen Richardson, Kathleen Campbell came forward And it took years to restore, but it's a testament to how the elite came back to save the property from its doom.
Wow, that is a great story, actually, and pretty close to the edge before it. So, what's it like now to go inside?
Well, I mean, it was opened as a museum in 1974, and then subsequently in 2005, they built an interpretive center that wrapped around it so they could have more of an event center. What's it like now? It's really, again, a snapshot into not only the social history of the city and what it was like to live at that time period, but really the architecture. It's one of the best Queen Anne style revival homes, which is now a museum in all of Canada. And really, it's entertainment and education combined. So school children and people from Winnipeg and visitors from all over the world can really get a snapshot of what Winnipeg was like. At the turn of the 20th century, we were a force to be reckoned with. We were one of the fastest growing cities in North America. And that's something that a lot of us are very proud of, the past history, and in order to preserve it for future generations.
Well, and also, I always find going in there, it's almost like going into someone's home. I mean, the stuff is all there. It's not all behind glass. You can imagine, for one thing, how much stuff people had in their houses in those days. But
I think they meticulously purchased the furniture and the wall coverings and used all the colors of that time period. It was very important to have the interior represent the exterior. But it is such beautiful architecture and so welcoming. And then, unfortunately, it closed again in 2013. So again, a real testament to that museum and its resilience. And for 2 years, the Friends of Delnavert was created, of which I was a part of. And it's also a testament to the tenacity of the volunteers in this city. I want to give a shout out to the nonprofit sector because these handful of people rallied, got together, and most Winnipeggers said, you can't close it. And so a new financial model was put together and a new management program was put together. And although, it's thriving, but again, we feel that there's, not a lot of heritage grants, not a lot of money out there. Yeah. So it still struggles, as a lot of museums do.
I wanted to talk about the volunteers as well, because they really are the reason it keeps going, both from rallying the troops, but also if you're there, they'll give you a tour.
The volunteers are really the mainstay of that museum, why it exists and why it continues to exist. And it makes me proud because there are so many amazing volunteers. And these are volunteers, people should know, that put in thousands of hours for many years. In fact, some of them, I think, could look at decades at this point. Wow. So it's about the people. When we look at architecture and we look at bricks and mortar, we tend to think of the building. I tend to look at the people of the time period and the people now. So it's a testament to past, present, and future.
Well, and that's what I think Delnavert really conveys. When you're in there, you feel like people lived there and that history happened and that you're, as I said in the intro, it's like time traveling. You're there. You're part of it. It's not just something you're watching on a screen. It's not just something you're hearing about. So, of course, it's a museum, and as you say, a testament to the past. But what else goes on at Delnavert?
They have lots of different events. They are able to give the historic tours through the museum, and now with the interpretive center, they're able to have events. They have Canada's Costume Museum and other different amazing exhibits. And it also it generates revenue. And I think what people need to know is restoration costs a lot of money, but it also is very hard to sustain these museums financially.
So what are you going to be doing to mark the anniversary?
They have special exhibits that they're providing for everyone. I think they have a special event on Sunday. They have a beautiful garden outside that everybody's able to attend.
Garden.
But I also think of Delnavert with Christmas. It is the Christmas museum, and with Ron Robinson and his storytelling and all the different. But they have become very creative in the interesting exhibits that they showcase. And again, a testament to forward thinking of how we can bring more people into there.
I saw a fantastic show there once. It was haunted Winnipeg kind of a thing, where that lent itself extremely well to kind of spooky stuff in there.
There's a lot of flexibility with the theming, and there's a lot of younger people now that are part of the museum, so that also brings it forward into the future.
What's your favorite thing at Delnavert?
My favorite thing is the architecture. When I stand on Carlton and I look at the beautiful architecture, the sort of Queen Anne style revival, which again, it's a National Historic Site since 1990 and it's municipally designated since 1995. But Charles Wheeler was quite the architect, and it is so stunning.
And can you imagine that might have been a parking lot? But no, it's not.
I would say we've learned from it, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. Okay, this is a prime example of let's not pave paradise or Victorian relics.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Cindy, for coming in and telling us about it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. That's Cindy Tugwell. She is the executive director of Delnavert Museum, and the museum is at 61 Carlton Street in downtown Winnipeg. I think we can squeeze in a tune here. Let me just see. Oh, from Leaf Rapids, this is Silver Fillings.
Why is it so hard to love? It's a miracle we're here at all. Why is it so hard to love? Walking down Broadway, minding myself. Suddenly I'm hearing Highway to Hell. Stop dead in my tracks and drown in the crowd. Nobody else hears a sound. My silver fillings are sometimes receivers. First time it happened, thought it was Jesus. Funny the things that can lead to salvation. Holes in my teeth and a radio station. Sometimes it's news with the who's killing who's in a tally. Can't even fathom. Slump to the curb and just sing out the words when they spin a familiar anthem. Why is it so hard to love? It's a miracle we're here at all. Why is it so hard to love? One quiet night, hello out there. Don't think you'd ever believe where I'm from. I found a way to send radio waves through the space and time continuum. You might be.
Oh, that was a beautiful song from Manitoba band Leaf Rapids. That was Silver Fillings. You're listening to Radio Noon. The news is next.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, it's 22 degrees and mostly sunny over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. Manitoba's Iranian community is celebrating yesterday's decision by the federal government naming Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps a terrorist organization. There has been pressure for years for Ottawa to make that declaration. Kurush Dushtanes is the spokesperson for the Association of Families of Flight PS 752 victims. That flight was shot down in January of 2020 by the IRGC, killing everyone on board. 55 Canadian citizens were on the plane, and including 9 Winnipeggers. 9 Winnipeggers were also on the plane. Dushtanes' fiancée was one of the people on the plane.
This is a huge step forward in our fight for the truth and justice. And this also, it combines also with a bigger fight what is currently going on in Canada, which is the foreign interference.
Nushana says the IRGC tries to intimidate the Iranian diaspora in Canada. With the designation of being a terrorist organization, Canadian police can now charge anyone supporting the group. Canada will get the ball rolling when the Copa America kicks off tonight in Atlanta. The men's team will face World Cup champion Argentina. It's the first time Canada is participating in the Pan American tournament. Jamie Strachan reports.
For the Canadian men's soccer team, it's an unbelievable opportunity with the eyes of the soccer world watching. Taking on number one Argentina and arguably one of the greatest players of all time in Lionel Messi. That's the situation the team finds itself tonight in Atlanta before a sold-out crowd of more than 70,000 people. Canada has a very difficult group that they're in. They have Argentina, of course, tonight, followed by games against Peru and Chile. They'll need a result in at least 2 of those games if they hope to get out of the group stage. Of course, Canada coming off a World Cup where it failed to win any of its 3 games. Tonight, hoping to put its best foot forward against one of the greatest teams and players ever. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Atlanta.
And we are about to learn more about the province's plan to search a Winnipeg area landfill for the remains of women. The Canoe government will hold a technical briefing laying out the plan to search Prairie Green. The remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are believed to be there. The women are the victims of an admitted serial killer. Premier Wab Canoe will be talking about that in a half hour's time, and we'll be carrying that live on the CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Back soon.
And that was Matt Humphrey with the CBC News. And now, another skilled professional in the studio with me. It's Riley Lachek, weather specialist.
On a first day of summer.
First day of summer. This
Almost.
is a solstice show.
Yeah.
When is it, 3:50?
3:50 this afternoon is when we officially enter summer. The sun is at its highest point in the sky out of the year for us. So 16 hours of daylight today is what we get.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. Although it'll be shining in my eyes when I go to bed
Yes.
at like 9 o'clock. Like I
Most
do 'cause I'm
likely,
old. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the days start getting shorter from here.
Thanks for that, Riley.
Don't mean
How many
to-
weeks till Christmas?
Yeah, don't mean
Shopping.
to doom and gloom, but yeah, the days start getting shorter after today. Temperatures right now, 23 in Portage. That's one of the warmer spots in the province right now. 21 in both Winnipeg and Gimli. 20 in Brandon at the moment, and 19 in Thompson. Looking at a high today of 26 degrees this afternoon. Mainly sunny skies. I will say that there is the slight risk of a thunderstorm here in the Red River Valley through the afternoon. Doesn't mean, a thunderstorm everywhere, but could see some pockets of showers, maybe a few rumbles of thunder. The best chance of that comes further to the west of us in areas like Brandon, for example, looking at a greater chance of some thunderstorms this afternoon. Generally, though, we're looking at mainly sunny sky across the province, and that's what we're getting into as we get into the rest of the afternoon today and into the day on Friday as well. We're setting up for a couple of very sunny days here in Manitoba. Even as we head into the weekend, we will see a little bit of cloud moving in early Saturday morning and maybe a few more showers through the later part of Saturday. Generally, though, we're looking at temperatures staying above seasonal as we get through the balance of the weekend, even into next week. Forecast for this afternoon, at least, we're looking at 26 in Winnipeg, 24 in Brandon and Melita, 23 in Dauphin this afternoon, and 21 under a mainly sunny sky in Thompson. Risk of a thunderstorm kind of Interlake south and sort of Dauphin Swan River south. The best chance of some thunder showers this afternoon. 27 for Friday. I've got 22 for Saturday, 26 for Sunday, and 29 for Monday with the risk of a thunderstorm in the afternoon.
Well, that sounds summery.
It does.
On this solstice kind of a Thursday. That's
take it.
great. I'll take it.
I'll take it.
Why is it so cold in the morning? That's what I want to know, really.
I like the cool breeze.
I don't like the look of my impatience plants. That's what. Well, thanks very much, Riley.
No problem.
And you can hear weather specialist Riley Lachek later today on Up to Speed from 3 till 6. You're listening to Radio Noon. I want you to call me because we're going to be talking pets with vet Dr. Jonas Watson. Give me a call, 204-780-0893, or out of town, 1-800-268-5483. Get on the line now because people usually have lots of questions about their pets. And once we start getting into summer, There are different things to worry about at other times in the year, so give me a call, 204-780-0893. Wendy Parker is got her hand over the headset or the handset to the phone, ready to take your calls. Because we have veterinarian Dr. Jonas Watson in studio, as I mentioned. He's past president of the Manitoba Veterinary Medical Association, and he practices at Grant Park Animal Hospital in Winnipeg. And if you have a question about your dog, your cat, your hamster, or any other pet, he's here to answer them. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I personally have a wood tick for a pet this year. I'm not sure if it's the same one, but it keeps appearing.
Yeah, that you could probably find a cuddlier pet than that, I would think.
Oh, this one likes to cling, I'll tell you.
I bet he does.
Seems to be the season for it. But and of course, wood ticks affect animals as well. But what I did first want to talk about is what's that long word? Blastomycosis.
Blastomycosis.
Which I've heard about with digging and so on, a fungus that's you might find under cottages. Can you talk a bit about that?
It's a fungus. It's a soil saprophyte that we have for a long time associated with people who travel to the Lake of the Woods and pets that are in Lake of the Woods. We're discovering, though, that there is some prevalence beyond just that area, and that parts of Manitoba, including the Seine River and the White Shell, and possibly parts of Saskatchewan too, have some blasto there, because we've detected dogs who have been infected without travel to the Lake of the Woods area. It primarily causes pulmonary, lung, respiratory type disease, bad pneumonias, that sort of thing. But it can cause other kinds of lesions too, including eye problems and problems in the bone and digits on the paws. So it causes quite severe systemic disease in dogs and humans, and sometimes cats and other species. And it's a fairly serious disease that requires fairly urgent veterinary attention when when a dog becomes sick.
And how do you treat it?
You treat it with antifungal medications, usually months and months of antifungal medications that are usually well tolerated. Probably a minimum of 6 months, but usually we'll treat 1 month beyond a relatively negative test. The test that we run, we do a multitude of things, including x-rays and blood work and things, but one of the confirmatory tests is a antigen test, which is run on urine that we send off and have it detected. Then we'll, as months go by during treatment, we'll periodically check the urine test again and see if those numbers are going down, and hopefully they do. We successfully treat blasto probably 2/3 of the time, and then perhaps 1/3 or a quarter of the time we are not able to treat it. So it's very serious, and you do want to get on top of treating it if your dog is showing signs.
And I want to ask you some more about that, but I want to, I'm sure our listeners may be surprised as I was that it's not just sort of Lake of the Woods oriented. You're seeing it more.
Yeah.
If you have some questions for Dr. Watson, do give us a call at 204-780-0893 to answer any questions about either blastomycosis or anything else to do with your pet, particularly as summer's coming on. So what would you look for in your pet?
Well, you might have a history of having a cottage in Lake of the Woods. You may even know neighbors or previous dogs you've had, or even people that have been there that have had blasto, so that might kind of clue you in a bit. But the classic textbook presentation for a dog with blasto is a dog who simply will not eat, suddenly just will not eat food, is coughing, is maybe having some obvious trouble with breathing, and has maybe lost a little bit of weight. When we examine, they'll often have a fever. Blood work will often show some inflammation on a complete blood cell count. And an x-ray will often have, x-rays can look different, but we sometimes describe a blizzard type appearance to chest x-rays, where the normally black lungs on an x-ray just look like these multifocal white spots that just like white out the whole, and sometimes it can be more discrete nodules on lung, but that would be the common presentation, and veterinarians see this with some regularity.
With dogs? What about cats?
Cats will get it sometimes, but they don't get it as often. Cats are also not outdoors as much as dogs are, so dogs are more, they're more prone to catch it for that reason. But I think cats also are just perhaps not as susceptible as dogs are.
How do you prevent it? I always associate it with digging or being under a cottage. Just not let your dog go under the cottage?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, if you're in endemic areas, you probably should prevent the dog from digging or going into areas where construction is happening or soil is being turned over. that would be prudent things to do. But the reality is, I have definitely seen some patients where there's no history of digging, no history of wild running through the bush or going around shorelines where soil might be moist. I have definitely had some dog patients. One I remember where the owner told me that they only drove through Lake of the Woods and never got out of the vehicle. And I've had several where the dog just sort of spent a few hours on a patio, a deck, and left. And so you don't necessarily, it's in the soil, so that soil can get onto flower pots and places where people walk and that sort of thing.
And could it be sort of airborne out of the soil?
They do inhale these spores, but it's not really airborne, like floating around, aerosolized. You do sort of have to breathe it in.
Yeah.
So you do need proximity to soil where the saprophyte exists, but you don't need to be sticking your nose in the dirt to get it. That is for sure.
Yeah. Huh. Well, give us a call, 204-780-0893. I'm in conversation with veterinarian Dr. Jonas Watson, and he is a perfect font of information about all kinds of pets, including dogs with fungal infections, blastomycosis. I also want to talk to you because of the heat that's coming along. It's been maybe a slow start in terms of heat for this season, but I don't know if you consider it climate change, but it seems to be getting hotter all the time. And what are the key precautions we need to take with our pets now that it's getting hot?
On hot days, like days of 25 degrees Celsius and warmer, you do have to sort of be aware of the fact that dogs can be prone to heat stroke. Certain dogs in particular, especially older ones, dogs with heart disease or respiratory diseases, dogs with squished in faces like pugs and French bulldogs and others, dogs with laryngeal problems like laryngeal paralysis. These would be dogs that would be, and overweight dogs or dogs with thick coats. These are dogs that would be particularly prone to heat stroke. So you do have to be careful. Like some of these animals, it's best to not even take them out on very warm days. And if you are going to take animals out in warm weather, realize what their abilities are. Don't push them. Don't necessarily frantically throw a tennis ball for a dog in 30-degree temperature. If you are going to be exercising with the dog in warm weather, having access to a swimming area can be a good way to cool them off. Having water with you on these excursions, but mostly just trying to use good judgment in terms of not letting a dog overexert himself in warm weather. And if you do have any sense that a dog has gotten himself into trouble, which usually manifests as severe respiratory distress or collapse, get to a veterinarian immediately and put that air conditioning on in the car on the drive over.
Yeah. I noticed when you're mentioning being near water, I live in Winnipeg Beach, and there's a dog beach, like a proper Parks dog beach, which is a fantastic thing for the dogs. But I also wonder, what about things like the blue-green algae that is sometimes in Lake Winnipeg? Are pets at risk because of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Blue-green algae is one of these things that will sort of flare up here and there through the summer. I was on the show about a month ago. We were talking a bit about it, and I sort of described it as looking like a slick of green paint on the surface. That's kind of how it presents itself. It looks like paint poured on the surface. It might be kind of near the shore. It doesn't always stick around for a long time. It may be there for a few days and then kind of disappear. But if you are walking your dog at a shoreline where you see anything that looks like that, you definitely want to stay away, because it will take a totally healthy dog who then consumes it and kill them very quickly. Like you will, if your dog ingests blue-green algae, they're unlikely to survive in time to get to a veterinary hospital.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's serious.
Still on a dramatic note, we've had a call from Jethro on YouTube. He says he wants people to know about dogs being attacked by skunks, and wonders, could a dog bitten by a skunk contract rabies?
Absolutely, they could, and there has been some stuff I've noticed on social media about rabid skunks. There are always rabid skunks in southern Manitoba. That's our main rabies vector in the south. And there was some compelling video of a dog and skunk having an interaction. Skunks can absolutely transmit rabies to dogs. That's why we vaccinate dogs and cats pretty vigilantly against rabies, because it's such a serious and fatal disease.
He's calling from Oakbank, so
yeah. So I think Oakbank was one of the communities that was particularly where they've noticed an uptick in some of these skunks. Skunks who are acting unusually, they're normally nocturnal and peaceful animals that come out at night, but if they're interacting with anyone during the day or walking around during the day, and certainly if they're acting neurological or weird in any way, that would be very telling. You should call Manitoba Conservation right away if you see a skunk who's not acting properly. Rabies is a very serious disease. I mean, it's good that the veterinary community has been so vigilant about vaccinating dogs for rabies, and that's the reason we can have dogs as pets. But in other countries where dogs are not vaccinated for rabies, I mean, it's a huge, huge problem. It kills dogs and kills people too, because dogs will bite people and people can get rabies. So it's very, very serious. And if there's any sort of suspicion of a rabid animal in the neighborhood, you should call Manitoba Conservation. Keep your pets away, and you keep away yourself, and also make sure that pets, dogs and cats, are current on their rabies vaccination to keep all members of the family safe.
Well, if you have any questions out there in listener land, give us a call, 204-780-0893. Dr. Watson mentioned vaccinations, and I know that sometimes that can be very confusing. So if you have some questions about that or anything to do with your pet as summer marches on, do give us a call, 204-780-0893, or out of town, 1-800-268-5483. Now, we also have another email asking, how do we protect our pets from wildlife generally, like coyotes, for example? I guess a coyote population is much greater now. We're having to learn to live with them. So how do you protect your animals? They're not the big rabies vector, I suppose, that the skunks are. But
that's right, yeah. But certainly coyotes might potentially be looking to hunt smaller animals. Obviously, they would be eating the little eastern cottontail rabbits and other things that they find, and they are definitely in residential areas. People regularly see coyotes and foxes in areas, common sort of almost suburban areas. I think you just sort of have to be cautious about when you're walking your own dog. These animals might be out sort of early in the morning and later in the evening. Certainly be cautious about letting cats outdoors who could potentially be prey to coyotes. Small dogs too. If you think that there might be coyotes in the neighborhood, I would go outdoors with your small dog and be careful. I mean, try to survey where it is that you might be walking. If there's a suspicion that there could be coyotes in the area, you may not want to frequent those areas. If you do encounter a coyote, I would pick up a small dog and I would probably maintain eye contact with it to try to intimidate it, make a lot of noise to sort of scare them off. A lot of times coyotes are actually not looking to harm anyone, but they are just sort of living their lives, and they may find certain things that look like food items that should not be food items. Right. So,
well, let's go to our callers. We have Tessa on the line. Hello, Tessa. Oh, just a second. I have to press the button here. Hello, Tessa.
Hi.
Hi. You had a question for Dr. Watson?
Yeah, I have two dogs. My blue heeler gets itchy every springtime, and to the point, and then he'll scratch and itch at his skin that it'll the fur will come off, and now he's developing a smell. And I'm just wondering maybe if he could be allergic to the tick pill that we give him, and I can't remember the brand now, or if it's just some people say it could be hot spots, but I thought that wasn't usual for healers.
Yeah, I think that the seasonality to your story sort of is kind of interesting, because it makes me think that the dog may have environmental allergies with a seasonal component, like maybe every spring, with different things in the air, pollens and other allergens, he may be reacting to that. Allergies in dogs tend to manifest as skin issues. Different inflamed skin and infections in frictional areas like the armpits and groin, sometimes ear infections, sometimes between the toes. Oftentimes we have to treat those symptomatically with a variety of different kinds of modalities, medications like prednisone, sometimes medicated shampoos and creams. If the dog is itchy, I would probably pay a visit to your veterinarian and see whether there could be infection. There might be a need for antibiotics, and see whether there's some kind of a anti-itch type allergy medication that would be suitable to help manage through these warmer months until we get to sort of cooler time when perhaps the dog's skin will settle down.
Does that help you, Tessa?
The molting?
Sorry, missed that?
Could it be related to the shedding, his winter coat and stuff?
If he's got a very thick coat still, then certainly that can prevent the skin from breathing a bit and can retain moisture. That could be part of it if it seems like his coat is quite thick. So there could be an indication for a good de-shedding or grooming. That might be helpful. But if you're seeing skin lesions, redness, or crusty or flaky things, and the dog seems quite itchy, he may actually need some kind of medication, either something topical or a shampoo or something oral and systemic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tessa. Give us a call, as Tessa did, at 204-780-0893. You were talking about vaccinations before, and we have another question, which is, do dogs really need annual vaccines?
Well, most vaccines that we use now are not annual. There are some that are labeled to be annual. The Lyme vaccine is an annual vaccine. The vaccine for Bordetella or kennel cough is an annual vaccine. But the other vaccines that we use, the classic sort of distemper parvo adenovirus type vaccine that all dogs get, that's most manufacturers make a 3-year vaccine, so the duration lasts for 3 years. Same thing with the rabies vaccine usually. It's usually a 3-year vaccine. So most veterinarians are not vaccinating annually for those. For vaccines that require boosters annually, then we have no choice but to use those. But the core vaccines, rabies, distemper, parvo, those are 3-year vaccines.
3 years,
yeah.
okay. Just to switch gears a bit here, you're hosting a community spay and neuter clinic in Churchill this month. How much of a demand is there for veterinary surgeries and services in the north?
Well, there's a demand. I mean, as you probably know, like every northern community needs veterinary care because animals live there. The occasional one in the north, community in the north, does have access to veterinary care, but most do not. Churchill, I've been traveling to Churchill for 11 years now, a couple times a year to bring veterinary services there, and so we have a pretty good handle on things in Churchill because we go as often as we do. There's a lot of liaising by telemedicine and email and phone calls during the times that we're not there. And so, yeah, there is a big need. It's been quite a journey, that decade of time going up there. This actually is the first year that I myself am not going, and I'm sending Dr. Drain, one of our associates at the hospital, to go. Just because I'm such a nice guy and I want to share the pleasure of going to Churchill with others.
Sure.
It's amazing. I mean, they're going right in the middle of beluga season too, which will be just a fabulous experience for them. But they have a very busy schedule to help a lot of dogs and cats up there. And we do wellness visits and vaccines, spay and neuter, and other kinds of services. And it's always a busy, busy time and a wonderful, wonderful experience.
And the shelters are pretty full, I hear, after sort of post-COVID numbers.
They are, yeah. Winnipeg Animal Services just had a huge dog sale this past weekend, I think. They are very often beyond capacity in terms of the animals that they have there. Same thing with Winnipeg Humane Society. Then, of course, you get these big seizures like that episode with the Maltese dogs a few weeks ago. So that really burdens them. It's great when the public supports these organizations and adopts pets from there because there is such a need to find homes for the animals that are living at the shelters. And of course, financial support and other kinds of support, donations of things and that sort of thing can be very helpful to support these organizations. Not to mention all the many rescues. There are probably 100 foster-based rescue organizations that are also completely inundated and face veterinary bills. Yeah, there are lots of homeless and needy animals all across this province that really depend on Manitobans to help in some way or other.
Yeah. And we have a question here. Why is there such a variation in vet fees across clinics?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know how much variation there is. In general, what I can say to that is we have sort of a fee guide in Manitoba that most of us are referring to. And I think like when we set veterinary fees, we are fairly sensitive about the fact that you don't want to be the guy who's charging so much more than everybody else because no one will go to your clinic. So you have to be a little competitive. So I think they're sort of most veterinary fees are within $20 or $30 of each other. Outside of the city, like in rural areas, veterinary fees are often considerably cheaper than in the city for a variety of reasons. So if a person is looking for greatly reduced veterinary fees, they might look to outside the city of Winnipeg. But there are a variety of things. Some practices are owned by corporations, some are locally, and that can influence some of decisions about the setting of fees. But I run our hospital, Grant Park Animal Hospital, and we try to price in a fair way to accommodate the diverse range of people that come to us as clients and to ensure that people do come. Because like I said, if the prices are too high, veterinary medicine's expensive already, so you can't price people right out of the market.
Yeah. I want to go back to, we were talking about how overcrowded the shelters are and the need of dogs to be rescued. What should people consider, though? I mean, considering that a lot of them filled up when people ill-advisedly got pets, what do people need to really think about before they adopt a dog or cat?
Well, the idea of rescuing an animal is just kind of a appealing and romantic idea to a lot of people. But and I wholeheartedly support that. But you should sort of realize what your limitations might be. You know, you if you are not prepared to take on the work of managing significant behavior challenges, or prepared to provide a lot of exercise to high energy dogs, then you may want to be careful about the kinds of pets that you need a more sedate and sedentary animal, you might look to an older and more laid back breed of dog or cat. But that would be it. Don't overextend yourself in an effort to try to be a hero to an animal, because the relationship between a pet owner and a pet is supposed to be a positive and your blood pressure is supposed to go down, not up. So, if you're going to take on a dog that you really are not going to be able to handle, that is not going to be in anybody's best interest.
Well, it's amazing how these things sometimes turn out. During COVID, my sister and her husband adopted quite just spur of the moment this gigantic dog that's an Anatolian Shepherd or something.
Oh, yes.
It's like 90 pounds. And we're like, what are you doing? But this dog is so chill.
That's good.
It just lies there. It ambles. It doesn't bark. Because we were thinking they'd get a little puppy of some sort. No. But this has just changed their lives. They're just so happy. And so is Bo the dog. He's like, yes, I died and gone to heaven here. So it works out well when you get the right pet.
Yeah, I think that's why it's necessary, especially if you're going to a shelter, to spend some time with the animal, really spend some time. And if you have other pets at home, have them spend some time at the shelter to see, is this going to be a good fit? And if it is, then go forward.
Go forward. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. Lots of interesting information. And I'm sure it's the busy season with people running around with their dogs, trying to keep them cool and out from not digging under the cottage. So thanks, and come back again soon.
Terrific. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. That's Dr. Jonas Watson. He is a veterinarian at Grant Park Animal Hospital in Winnipeg. You're listening to the last couple of minutes of the solstice version of Radio Noon. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten. I'd like to say thanks to Dylan Longhurst and Travis Pedersen doing the video thing, May McKillop doing the technical chores here, and director Wendy Parker. Show producer is Nellie Gonzalez, and the senior producer of audio is Leif Larson. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten, and I will probably talk to you again sometime this summer. Enjoy the summer solstice. Get out there at 3:50 and experience 16 hours of sunlight today. And it is mostly sunlight. High of 26. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.